We're going that way. Hello gainers, Ralphie here on location with a walk and talk for YouTube channel Fitter Philosophy, where we endeavour, partly through the experience of life and partly through the application of common sense, which is always refined through the experience of life, so long as we're not keeping our head buried in the sand, getting our philosophy fitter in our heads so that our lives can be all round fitter, more productive, more prosperous, more rewarding, and we can achieve more through having practical, experience-led, common sense philosophies which aren't too abstract, which are not too technical, and which importantly are not, and there's a big word coming up here, are not too convoluted. The problem with the Greek sages and philosophers in particular is they've been foisted upon us with a very academic perspective, as if to suggest that we do not have the intellect or the wit to be as intellectual and perceptive and as wise as they are. However, when you spend more time talking to ordinary people leading what appear to be ordinary lives, you'll find there's some very, very interesting insights. And this is what I'm going to talk about in this video. The subject is, and this is a conversation I had recently with a retired lady that I know in Glasgow. And we're just having a chat about it and talking about whiskey as well. But, excuse me, oh, leaves. It's always good to touch leaves, as long as they've not got spikes on them and thorns. But anyway, I mustn't digress. Incidentally, my location today is Skye Hill on the Isle of Man, and there was a battle here in 1079. The Vikings invaded, right? And what the Vikings did was they sent a little posse of sailors up on top of the local hill to lie in wait, unbeknown to the locals, and then they kind of had the kind of sea invasion as they usually do, beaching the longboats and rushing up the shore with their banging their shields. And then they basically stopped the locals, says, well, tell you, if you want to take us on, there's not many of us because the rest are right behind you up in that hill. So they have a little plaque here to commemorate the Battle of Skye Hill in 1079. The Chronicles of the Kings of Man and the Isles record that in 1079 a Norseman, Godred Croven, mustered a great number of ships and came to the island, where he joined battle with the people of the island, and defeated twice. He had to flee, but on the third attempt he landed his army by night. He did a sneak attack, camouflage, always works. And his 300 men he hid in the woods on Skye Hill, where we are. And the next day, at the height of the battle, the hidden forces attacked the locals from behind, and the victory for Godred was assured. So third time lucky for him. He treated the islanders mercifully and established a Norse dynasty that ruled Man, the island, till 1265. So to a certain extent that flies in the face of this bloodthirsty reputation that Vikings have, that they basically massacred everybody they invaded. This wasn't true. They were far more diplomatic than that, and practical. And it's been a huge divergence actually from my subject, but we were just passing and I thought a little bit of history can't do any harm. The subject I was discussing with my friend, the little old lady who enjoys whiskey, was in fact the subject of forgiveness. Far too often, forgiveness is presented to us as a worthy attribute and a nice thing to do. And the reason for that is that it's often presented to us from a religious perspective. And because we accept it purely from a religious perspective, we view it as something Were they something to aspire to, but perhaps not particularly practical? However, I would like to counteract the influence of a religious perspective by giving a very sociable perspective on forgiveness and the value that it can have to us all to be exercising this judgment, for the simple reason that when someone does us wrong and we never forgive them, we empower them, for the simple reason that we're validating the harm they've done to us by sharing the negativity that they generated when they did us wrong. If we forgive them, we remove that negativity, and the way that negativity imposed by others can build up and affect us is hugely powerful and should never be underestimated. When we are surrounded by negative people, we will become more negative. It's cause and effect, simple as that. The real power of forgiveness should be beyond purely a religious perspective. It should be seen as something which is actually a very common sense to do, because if we replace someone else's negativity with our own positivity, we're basically exercising the harm they've done us in the form of forgiveness. But importantly, it's conditional. It should never be blind, because blindness leads to the same mistakes happening again, and this person can reharm us because we have failed to learn from the first experience, which required forgiveness. So when we do forgive an individual, an organisation, we must do so sincerely and from a very positive angle. But never forget it. Never let that individual or that organisation ever be in a position again where they can do more harm to us, which would then result in requiring further forgiveness. A mistake made once is a mistake. A mistake made twice is a habit. A mistake made 3 times is made by someone who's just not learning. Simple as that. However, we're not finished quite yet, gainers, because when we forgive people and be very mindful of the harm that's been done, we are generating a positivity in ourselves, which, along with the experience of the harm and hurt done to us, is basically, it makes us wiser, it makes us smarter, it makes us far more experienced in recognising the symptoms of us being under personal attack or abuse from other individuals or organisations, which may require us to go into the forgiveness zone. We smarten up to it. There's nothing like personal experience. And I would conclude by saying that one of the most important people in our lives that we need to be mindful of forgiveness is, of course, ourselves. So many people go through life and they're full of regrets. I should have done this, I should have said that, I should be this, I should be doing more, I should be here, I should be there. How can I ever forgive myself? Well, we should. But just like forgiveness for other folk, forgiveness for our own weaknesses, flaws, bad habits, faulty decisions, bad moods, bad tempers, undermining of relationships with other people, we should be mindful that it is conditional. We need to learn from it. You can't just go through life saying, well, I've made a mess of this and I've made a mistake with that and I've fallen out with that person and all this. Well, I forgive myself. In fact, you're letting yourself off the hook. You're absolving responsibility for your life. We all do it to a certain extent. The skill is to reduce the volume of it. And therefore, forgiving ourselves must be conditional. Conditional that we are prepared to learn and to grow and develop and be more positive after that experience. It doesn't happen overnight, gainers. It happens slowly, surely, over time. And rather like a big jug of water, cloudy water, the more murky water, you'll never see through that glass. And that's like our lives. A big glass of water, murky, clouded, opaque. You can't see through it, you can't see reflections, you can't see the light on the other side of that glass until we add clean water to it. Drop by drop, not big splashes, but over time that cloudy water becomes a little bit clearer, a little bit more translucent, a little bit less opaque. And that is the way we morph in over time, and it needs time to become better quality versions of ourselves, in the understanding and in the knowledge, gainers, that as a direct result, whatever our circumstances, we will be leading better quality lives as a result of it. And as I've just discussed there, one of the key components is not just the ability to forgive others their wrongdoings to us, or folk we know, not just the ability for us to forgive ourselves for our own weaknesses and mistakes which we inevitably make, but importantly, it's learning from that experience, re-evaluating, recalibrating ourselves, reinventing ourselves, redefining ourselves, and as a direct result, like that glass of water I just commented about, we will become more and more transparent, and most importantly, transparent to ourselves. I'm Ralphie, done and dusted. Hope you enjoyed this little walking talk. I shall leave you with a charming little rural view of some Viking ghosts running down Skye Hill to join the battle against the natives in 1050, whatever, 1057, 1075, something like that. I'm not great with dates.